Everyone says. Everyone. Crazy English. Everyone. Singular. Isn't it weird? Everyone. Everything. Yeah, but it's singular. Yeah.
Everything, everyone.
Yeah. Anyone, no one, these are all singular. So everyone says. Alright. Critical thinking. Let's keep going with our fallacies for half an hour or so. Then I'd like to jump back to our culture shock thing, finish off a little bit of work on that. But to finish off yesterday, and do a couple of others. We were looking at appeal to authority, our last one, number 21. Appeal to authority. So, appeal to authority is a problem where you have area A, area B, so cold fusion, bioethics like morality and medical procedures like abortions or something, and you get an expert from here, Johann Skan, and you use him to talk about another area. That's a problem. He's not an expert in that field. And I have mentioned that it's kind of, we need to think about genetic fallacy too. Just because Dr. Johann Skan is the most published expert on cold fusion and got the Nobel Prize doesn't mean that we believe everything he says, does it? We've still got to look every time he publishes, we've still got to look at his research method or his team, analyse it, was the data collected properly, did he cherry pick? Or did someone in his team cherry pick? You know, it happens at academic level. There's a term, publish or perish. You know the word perish? To die. When something perishes, like you've got a beautiful leather chair and that leather gets dry and cracked and kind of rots away, that's perish. Yeah. So publish or perish, that's what a lot of academics have to do more and more, especially increasing financial pressure on them. And, you know, so quantity and quality generally is slipping. A lot of academics have commented on this happening in the brave new world of kind of deregulated universities. So, you know, people are under pressure, and at times they're under pressure to produce positive results. And, you know, sometimes things get cherry-picked or there's a little bit of bias, conscious, unconscious, whatever. We as critical readers and thinkers and researchers have to be on the lookout for that all the time. I read a quotation by, I think he's the ex-editor, I think it's of Lancet or Nature, I can't remember, I'll have to find it again because it was really important. So top medical journal, it was either the Lancet or the top science journal in the world, Nature. He was the ex-editor. He said about half of research has serious errors in it. And that's pretty high. You know. So in other words, just because it gets published in journals and it's got a professor or a whatever name against it, or even a high-level institution, you know, something with high ethos, there's no guarantee. So that's the whole point. Like, we can't commit the genetic fallacy just because it's coming from Harvard or Oxford Uni or Dr. Johann Skan. You know, even if it's in his field, we can't just say, oh, it's from there, therefore it's correct. That's genetic fallacy. But we should believe the person even less when they're talking outside their field on some topic. It's quite common though, people get expert in one area and then either people attribute a lot of intellectual power to them or they feel very confident and they start commenting on a whole lot of things. A classic example, Linus Pauling, physicist, mathematician. in the 50s and won the Nobel Prize. And his cure for the cold was, and he invented this, vitamin C. How many of you have come across somebody who says, or maybe you do it yourself, oh, I'm feeling a bit, run down, feel the cold coming, I'll take lots of vitamin C. Yeah? Now, that was Linus Pauling. He was quite an eccentric kind of guy, like a bit unusual. He did that. He swore by it, meaning he believed it cured him. People listened, but he's talking outside his field, isn't he? He's talking about quantum physics or whatever. He's talking about health issues. But from what I can see, when I've looked at the data on this, and you look at like the Cochrane collaboration or evidence-based medicine sites, there's no evidence to suggest that vitamin C has any effect over and above random background effects. So, but however, this thing's spread around the world, and people, it's a common belief. But then it's a classic case of where there's been an initial appeal to authority that started that off and running, and now, of course, you can't control it. Are people consulting the evidence? That's the question. Most people don't when it comes to these sorts of things. They believe what friends say. They believe anecdotal, let's go back to anecdotal evidence. Oh, my uncle, every time he feels sick, he takes vitamin C and he feels better. So you should do this. Yeah, but have there been trials of 10,000 people, 100,000? Yes, and it shows no difference. So, this is the sort of stuff we have to look at, really, if we're serious. Okay, so the question of... I wrote this before, but I'll write it again. Appeal to authority. Is the person a legitimate authority in the field? That's your question. Now, legitimate, what does that mean? That doesn't mean lawful. I mean, normally legitimate means lawful, but we're broader here, But, I guess things like, have they published? Are they from an institution with some reputation? Is the field... Okay, what about this? Somebody's a world expert in astrology. Yep, they're a world expert in astrology, and they're the top astrologer in Australia, say, and I go to them to get my fortune told. Yep. They tell me I'm going to have 16 children and become a multi-millionaire. Okay? Now, they're an authority in their field. They're recognised as the best astrologer, looking at the stars on Jupiter's in Scorpio, and the moon's in Sagittarius. Therefore, that was at the time of your birth, therefore this is going to happen to you. Legitimate authority in the field? Yes, they been recognised as the best top person in this field. Is it a legitimate field? Is it a legitimate scientific field?
Oh, it's another question.
That's right, that's right. So, you've got to ask this question too. Is the field itself, scientifically, all of this stuff, we're talking about rational meaning logical, scientific thinking, aren't we? That's what critical thinking is. Is the field recognised, by the scientific discourse as legitimate and scientific? In this case, no. So it doesn't matter how many prizes or stars this person gets, they don't achieve the criteria. So we've got two questions here, really. Are they legitimate, and is the field itself a valid field of scientific inquiry? So, two things to consider. So are we okay with that one? Appeal to authority. We'll keep doing a few easy ones. Appeal to popular belief. 13. Oh, everyone thinks that. Or lots of people think that. Therefore it's true. So, men and women are not equal. Just ask anyone. You know, most people say they're not equal, or they're totally different. You know, so that must be true. Not necessarily. Let's do psychological testing and see if men and women are different in their emotional responses. You know, things like, women are warmer and more sociable than men. Ask anyone. They'll tell you that's true. Therefore it's true. Is it? What's the scientific data? You know, what tests have been done that measure interpersonal proximity and warmth, and how many men and women have been tested, and what's the sample size, and what's the difference in results? And how many times has that been replicated or tried using different measuring instruments, different survey instruments, different interview forms, whatever. If we see enough data that's used many different methods and so on, and there's a difference, sure. But until that, we can't rely on just what people generally think. Yeah. Can anyone think of other examples of popularly held beliefs that are possibly not true? They're pretty common.
But how about by experience?
Yeah.
By experience, like for example, if you're talking about the data and experience, it's a similarity things, isn't it? But because the data, you can read it down something.
When you say experience, you mean personal experience?
For general experience, a lot of people's experience, not for yourself. Like Chinese culture, 50,000 years.
Yeah.
Chinese medicine is very good, but in Western country they don't believe Chinese medicine because it's no scientific analyze. But thousands of years, the people survive on Chinese medicine.
Right, that's a good one. That's a nice one.
That's a quite ego.
Yeah, okay. Now that one, let's go to number 10. This form of medicine is really good because we've used it for thousands of years. Appeal to tradition. Now, Chinese medicine might work, or Ayurvedic, let's take another form, you know, the subcontinent form, you know. Again, one that's been used for thousands of years. It may work, it may not. We've done things for thousands of years, not necessarily because it's cured people. It might be doctors through the ages have made a lot of money for thousands of years, and that's why they keep on doing it. I mean, we don't know. We have to explore it. How would we find out? What's a way of finding out? Give me a Chinese medicine example, then, of a sickness and something that cures it.
Cancer?
Yeah?
Breast cancer?
Breast cancer? Is there a Chinese cure for breast cancer?
Yeah.
Is
Very
there-
effective.
Very effective? Yeah, okay, so let's take, alright, that's an interesting example though.
Yeah.
Breast cancer, is there a particular Chinese medical technique that cures breast cancer?
Acupuncture and herbals.
Yes.
I personally treated one patient who has a breast cancer on second stage, and after visit Chinese medicine clinic in Urumqi, it's a city near of Kazakhstan border.
Near to
Kazakhstan border in China, the lump disappeared.
Right, well that's an interesting one. Okay.
That is not only accident. I know a lot of examples
Yes.
with similar outcome.
Okay, but okay. So, Pavel, interesting experience, and it could be the beginning of a, interesting and important new discovery. But I would argue the beginning
But
at this stage.
it will not discovery. It could be research.
Research.
Yes.
Which is ultimately a discovery, isn't it?
Discovery is something new. But
Yeah.
that is a very old technique and very old knowledge. Unknowable for Western medicine, maybe,
Yeah.
but it's not discovery.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
so presently-
That's an interesting argument as to whether, when does it officially become a discovery? I would
Ah,
argue
what does
it's
it mean
in-
officially?
Yeah.
That is a question.
Yeah. By official, I mean not registered by government, but
Ah,
according to the scientific method, the orthodox scientific method, that is not yet a discovery.
mhm.
But if we got 1,000 cases, or we got a good sample size and they're recorded,
Mhm.
right, and it gets published, peer-reviewed, etc., I'd say, okay, at that point, in terms of the Western scientific tradition, or not even Western anymore, it's general scientific tradition, that's then a discovery. But it's not a discovery until, because within Chinese medicine, I bet there are many tests you could do and they wouldn't work. Now, if those things are not working, we can't say they're discoveries.
I would disagree with you that the case with Chinese medicine is a fallacy.
Mm.
It's unknownable field, but it's not fallacy.
No, I'm not saying it's a fallacy.
It's not appeal
No.
to tradition.
It can be if you just say this form of medicine is really good because we've used it for thousands of years. That's an appeal to tradition, and that's a fallacy. If you say this form of medicine is very effective because
We have 1,000 of examples.
here's the data, and
Yeah.
we can see from using ginger for this we cure people. There's an 80% cure rate.
Mhm.
And we use ginseng, and there's 69% cure rate above placebo, and we can list them off. If we've got a data-based, evidence-based argument about Chinese medicine, or again, Chinese medicine, there are probably things that work and things that don't work. We'd have to break it down. That's not a fallacy, using that kind of argument. But if you just say anything, and take any tradition, and you just say it's good because we've done it for thousands of years, that's fallacious. You're not
Yeah,
using
because you
evidence.
can support your opinion by the data.
Yeah, that's right.
So it will depend on structure of your sentences.
Yeah.
How do you present your thing?
Yeah. You're not just sentence,
Yeah.
not just grammar, it's your method of thinking, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
do you use data?
Do you support your mentions by the data?
Exactly, yeah. And if you're using data and you're using it logically and consistently about anything, yeah.
Some of the method they're using, they cannot be with the data
From your own
to
data.
provide the evidence.
Yeah,
it's
They
from-
cannot. They by
from the
experience.
data.
Not
Like
beliefs, but
observation,
your
you have to
knowledge,
Look
actually.
at your eyes, look at your hands, how they're feeling, how from their experience. Even the father look at that case, the son learning from the father to look at the
Yeah.
case totally different too. And that is really technique in there, very hard to register. And also part of the culture, they pass to the son, never pass for the daughter.
Mm.
And maybe some of them is already gone, disappeared. It's a really valuable experience.
Well, if it's not measurable, at least within a scientific tradition, you can't make a claim about it.
Yeah, but what I mean is that you always talk about scientific evidence, but why don't you use some brain to experience it, move the other side, give us some credit, experience evidence is a value as well.
Okay, yeah, experiment and research is experience. That's what the word, when we go back to 1600 and the scientific revolution, at least in England, and people like Francis Bacon, empiricism means experience, but not the experience of one or two people, right? Because the problem with this is, you've talked about cherry picking a few times, it's really easy. In your social network, I'll cherry pick. We use ginger, and it worked on these friends, but didn't work on these friends. But look, when I'm talking with my friends, I'll just mention the successes. That happens all the time with people. We have this natural tendency to talk about the successes and just ignore the negatives, right? Now, that's happening in a culture over and over again down generations. That's not really very reliable about whether something works or not. What we want to do is, sure, we go back to a real experience, I agree. But we test 1,000 people's real experience of breast cancer and whatever, and we see, is there a result that's above a random sample of other people who were subjected to, a placebo, like a sugar pill or whatever it is. If you get a significant result statistically, we can start to say there's something going on here. But we can't rely on word of mouth in a culture. It's just incredibly unreliable. It's influenced by all sorts of emotional experiences. It's influenced by a really important thing, term, collocation, vested interests. Of course, not every medical practitioner, some are more ethical than others. But your vested interest, they have an interest in saying, look, here's the wonder drug. This will fix you and your family. It's only $50. Credit card accepted.
Sometimes they...
That motivates lots of people down the ages, doesn't it? And medical traditions or any kind of tradition has been strongly shaped by this. So how do we filter out this noise?
Yeah.
We have to go back to very regular and strict scientific observation and measurable. It has to be measurable.
There's one point in there.
Hang on.
The way you're talking about the measurable, they got the consequence in there. Because I find out the Western way, they got scientific proving, measurable, everything in the data. But they always wait until the happening, then they treat you very quickly. But in Chinese medicine, they treat you beforehand to generate, to maintain yourself, everything first.
Yeah.
But
Preventative.
Yeah, preventive.
There's also a very strong strand these days of preventative medicine in the West.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to be careful of number 11. Number 11, overgeneralisation.
Yeah.
We have to be careful
Let me finish
Yeah,
the last
yeah.
one. The last one is that they've been a data, they've been scientific proof can cure cancer, Westerner. But find out now, the latest evidence say only 30% can survive. Survive from wherever you have a cancer. But now Chinese medicine and Western medicine, they join together almost 80%. And why? They got data there now.
Sure.
In Hong Kong, they build up this system.
Yeah. And Hong Kong
And
has been quite active.
Even in China, but China, they don't trust in China because of the reputation.
Sure.
But Hong Kong, they build up like that.
If all those techniques of Chinese medicine are subjected to empirical testing and they pass the test, sure, everybody should adopt them. Why not? I'm not dismissing Chinese medicine at all. No doubt many of those things have passed the test. No doubt some of those things have not. Same in Western medicine. If things like, Pablo, the Cochrane collaboration and other, these are data-driven, aren't they? Yeah. Use this particular drug, does it have an effect? And there are many studies, and then Cochrane tries to do what we call meta-analyses, looking at 30 different studies of, say, what's the stuff for arthritis? Say fish oil. Taking fish oil, does it affect arthritis? So there are many studies, and Cochrane tries to do an overall summary of the studies over the last 20 years and used by doctors as evidence-based. So I guess one study might show it, but of the 37 studies, what overall is the result? And it's a guide for doctors. In other words, evidence-based. But there are many examples, I don't know if you can think one, Pablo, where it's been accepted wisdom by doctors, but then Cochrane actually indicates that it's probably not correct. Can you think of an example of a traditional, or something that has been accepted that Cochrane?
And the other thing is it got a lot of political behind, like a lot of drug company. Big drug company control all those things.
Sure,
as well.
that's important, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
So it has this.
Once I can't sleep, they prescribe my prescription. He said antidepressant.
Yeah.
Until I really stick in the antidepressant, I can't help myself anymore now because overdosed already.
Right. Yeah. Vested interests. Is it the pharmaceutical company themselves that's doing the research? That's a problem, isn't it? Then you have to be looking to see how independent that group is, and that's often really hard to find out because there's their underground channeling of funding going to this organisation that sounds independent. We get into all this problem, but these are all questions we have to be asking.
And you don't think because of the business making money, they don't want to get empiricism about the herbal medicine or Chinese medicine? Because if they prove it,
Yeah.
it is good for breast cancer. Or it
Sure,
is good
sure.
for
Yeah,
some-
yeah, yeah.
It's
certain
very,
disease.
very long way to prove that.
Yes.
They're too
And
powerful,
billion of
they-
dollars to
yeah.
prove that.
Yeah.
But in China, they use during thousands of years without
Even
any
now,
improvement,
they still do
without
that.
any evidence-based
Any proof.
and any evidence-based researches.
Mm.
Coming from
Surprisingly-
the other side,
Or if they want to
I
prove
have
it,
a-
they have to lose the chemical medicine.
Herbal is the chemicals.
Yes.
Surprisingly,
Yes.
everyone knows what is acupuncture. Yeah, a small dot and points on skin when doctor can use to press and to regulate some metabolic processes. Do you know that no any physical subtract under the acupuncture points, no any changes after the pressure on the acupuncture points. Many pathologists make the research and didn't find anything on the acupuncture points. Usual tissue, absolutely.
Very polyphonic.
No neurons, no vessels, nothing. But when we press the hegu point, we can express some special feelings. Where evidence-based research?
Well, I guess, however, if we took, I don't know, let's say any disease, what's a common disease you cure or claim to cure with acupuncture?
Arthritis.
Arthritis, okay, let's take arthritis.
Pain
Okay.
management?
Now, we may not understand the mechanism,
No.
like you say, if we don't understand the mechanism, like what you're saying.
Western
there seems
medicine
to be-
can't recognize the
That's
mechanism.
right, yeah. However, we can
It's
still...
empirical knowledge.
That's right, but we can still use empirical, I would argue, that we shouldn't claim it works until we do a reasonable sample size and we take a bunch of people with arthritis and we split them in two and we get 300 of them and we do regular acupuncture and the other half we give a sugar pill to, not nothing, because there's a 20% or so effect, placebo, just people thinking, oh, I'm getting treated and they get better. So we give them something. Okay, after however long we determine, 3 months, whatever, we test again. Is there a significant difference? If there is, great. It seems there's something working.
There
We
was-
don't know what it is. We know, as you say, Pavel, we don't know that mechanism. But if there's, say,
But
double the
it is
number
work.
who feel
Yeah.
better, or we can test the level of arthritis and whether it's developed or not, and we get results that are twice as good or whatever, sure, then we've got some basis for the claim, even though we don't know the mechanism. What that would mean is now we'd start further research into trying to find what that mechanism is, and we may never find it. But that claim, at least, is supported by evidence. But until we do that test, you cannot claim that one is better than the other. There's no data. There's no evidence. And I don't care how many thousands of years you've been doing it, you cannot make that claim and it stands up as a valid scientific claim. If you want to say, oh, well, I'll reject the whole scientific method then, okay. But then you're talking another discourse and you can't really have that discussion with a scientist and you wouldn't be publishing in academic literature.
yeah,
You
sometimes
just
that,
wouldn't be accepted.
that happens. Suppose you said like double-blinded.
Yeah.
One group is given a placebo, one group is
Yeah.
given the regular medicine. Suppose the one that is given a placebo, that get better as compared to the regular medicine. That means that medicine is not curing that disease.
Yeah.
So in that case, that's the proof that the medicine that have cured other people, like certain group, doesn't work on
That's
everyone.
right.
So
and perhaps
that
those-
could prove that the traditional medicine that has been coming is not the actual medicine to cure the disease.
Indeed, it could. It might show, positive results. It might show, as you say, negatives. And if it showed a negative, then probably some of those people in the past who have been cured
Yeah.
were being cured by the placebo effect.
Yeah.
And the psychological effect
Yeah,
of going
that
to see
depends
a
on that,
doctor
yeah.
and a doctor giving them something, doesn't matter what, but about 20% of people in 20% of circumstances get cured. Now
And
that's-
it could be the reason that the doctor telling them that that's the medicine for this purpose, but
Yeah.
doctors giving them only a sugar pill or placebo, but they're psychologically are thinking that that's the medicine and they are getting cured. In that case,
Exactly.
if you give the regular medicine and you tell the person, like, suppose that medicine that you mentioned for the arthritis, and you give it to the person, and that's not the medicine for arthritis, and you give it to the person, and you tell him this is the medicine, and he eat, and psychologically he's thinking that this is the medicine,